Hello, hello. I am Dr. Catherine Toomer. Thank you for joining me for my Dr. Toomer Talks. I apologize for some confusion with the timing because it went out as if it was 2 p.m. So I'm going to ask you a question. I'm just going to jump right in. So I'm going to talk about the prevention and reversal of type 2 diabetes. Now, 80% of most people with prediabetes don't know they have it. 1 in 5 people who have diabetes don't know they have it. And one of the reasons why I check for diabetes and prediabetes with my patients is simply because um some reason it's saying schedule doesn't start to go live. Okay. I'm just trying to remove some things. Okay, I'm not sure what's going on, but anyway. Destination. Sorry. Okay. It's because of one of the streams is it glitched somehow and it went out with the wrong time. And so now it's not letting me do anything else. So I'm just going to start all over as if, okay. Hi, Cindy. Hi, Marsha. Hi, Elizabeth. Thank you for coming. I appreciate you coming every week. So I'm going to start this again. I'm just going to edit out the first part because good Lord. Anyway, so 80% of people with prediabetes do not know they have it. 20% of people with diabetes don't know they have it. And when you start talking about insulin resistance, the number goes way up. And the reason this is so important is because metabolic disease is very problematic. It causes problems, health problems, it causes psychological problems, it causes all sorts of problems. In men, it causes erectile dysfunction. In others, it can cause blindness, gastroparesis, which is stomach paralysis. It can cause heart attacks. And it causes all sorts of numbness in fingers and toes, which leads to amputations. This is why I talk about metabolic disease so much, because it is insidious and it kills. And so knowing how to prevent it and how to reverse it is very important. And another reason why this is so dear to me is because I myself have reversed my diabetes. Well, technically, I was an insulin-dependent diabetic and I was able to get off of insulin. Now, I hear a lot of people say I have borderline diabetes. There really is no such thing as borderline diabetes. It's kind of like saying you're borderline pregnant. You either you have it or you don't. And once you have it, you always have it. It's just a matter of whether it's controlled or not. In any given environment, anything can bring it back out. Well, there's certain things that will bring it back out. So once you're diabetic, you have to live like a diabetic for the rest of your life. Once you have prediabetes, you must live as if you are diabetic to prevent it from becoming a diabetic. And I'm going to talk about how that's possible. But there's really, really important that, that we discuss this and we talk about how this can be the case. So I'm just going to give you the 5 steps, and then we're going to talk a little bit about, why this is so important, what it does, how you can reverse it, how you can treat it, and all the rest. And like I said, for those of you who are just joining, I am Dr. Catherine Toomer. I'm a family medicine and community health physician. I am the founder of Total Weight Care Institute, and I myself am a type 2 diabetic who has managed to get myself off of insulin. At one point, I was able to actually stay off medication altogether. But of course, as I got older and my metabolic status changed, I had to go back on medication. But that medication also saved my life. It helped my heart. It actually helped me lose 100 pounds total. And I am 60 years old right now. And I was told at 36 I would not live 5 years probably because of my heart condition. So clearly, I did pretty well. And I've been helping my patients reverse their diabetes ever since. I actually even helped my father reverse his diabetes. I've helped many of my family members because it is genetic. So many of my family members are diabetic, have diabetes also. And so I've helped them also manage their diabetes and get it under control. And as a result, many of them have lost a significant amount of weight, 80, 90 pounds. Like I said, myself, 100. So that's why we're going to talk about it. So number one, step to know in order to prevent or to reverse diabetes is know your risk factors. Walking around not knowing if family members have diabetes, particularly your parents and your brothers and sisters, you should be checked if you know that you have diabetes in your family. Diabetes has a strong genetic component. Not everybody in a family who has a genetic connection to diabetes will become diabetic, but largely it's due to environment. When certain things hit your genetics, hit your genes, then those genes become expressed and then diabetes becomes prevalent. Medications can cause diabetes. If you're on steroids for like rheumatoid arthritis, for lupus, for other diseases that you have chronic inflammation and you need medication to keep that inflammation down, that can cause and push someone into diabetes. Um, Gestational diabetes, meaning having diabetes during pregnancy, is a huge risk factor for being diabetic. In fact, 80% of women who had diabetes during pregnancy will more than likely become diabetic in their lifetime. That's a huge number. So when women say, I had gestational diabetes and ever since I had a child, I cannot lose this weight, it's probably because that gene got switched on and their genetic status, their metabolic status has been affected, and therefore they have difficulty from that point on. Unless it's addressed as if they are diabetic or have diabetes. So then there's the chicken and the egg argument. Having obesity puts you at risk for diabetes. However, 80% of people who have prediabetes and diabetes also are overweight or have obesity. But the question is, which caused which? Because we know that weight gain is caused by metabolic dysregulation. And so obesity is caused by metabolic dysregulation. And diabetes is metabolic dysregulation. So which caused which? We don't really know. It's just assumed that someone having obesity caused their diabetes. The thing is, their obesity just expressed itself, showed itself first before the diabetes was caught. So we really don't know which caused which. And so that's number one, know your risk factors. Number two, know your numbers. If you don't know your hemoglobin A1C, you have no way of knowing if you're diabetic or not. You have no way of knowing if you're pre-diabetic or not. Why is pre-diabetes so important? Because most people who are pre-diabetic, if they don't reverse it, go on to become diabetic. And so knowing your numbers, hemoglobin A1C, anything from about 5.4 to 5.6 or 5.3 to 5.6, you can still have a normal A1C and have insulin resistance. And the only way it's caught is with a glucose tolerance test. From 5.7 to 6.4 A1C is pre-diabetes. That is the time to try. If you are pre-diabetic, become unpre-diabetic, because otherwise the progression is to diabetes. And then diabetes is 6.5 and above. And I can tell you, I catch a lot of it. People walking around who have no idea that they have diabetes. And they're just amazed when they're treated, how wonderful they feel after having their diabetes addressed. And, this is really important because having a higher A1C is actually connected to being overweight and having obesity, because this, like I said, the same process that causes prediabetes or diabetes is the same process that causes fat production and obesity or being overweight. And the reason this is so important, and I'll talk a little bit more about this later, is because I can count on, sadly, too many hands, the number of people who knew they were diabetic, knew they're pre-diabetic, ignored it, and then they went on and they died prematurely, because that's really what it does. It causes premature death. So number one, know your risk factors. Number two, know your numbers. And the other about knowing your numbers is also knowing your blood sugars after you've eaten, an hour to an hour and a half, at the most 2 hours after you've eaten. The reason is fasting blood sugars are often normal in people who are not. You can be a full-blown diabetic and still and have a normal blood sugar when you're fasting. It's only after you've eaten, particularly carbohydrates, that that blood sugar goes up and you realize that you have a problem. So I always order what's called postprandial blood sugars, or blood sugars after you've eaten, because we don't walk through life fasting. We walk through life having eaten more than one meal in a day, preferably, and therefore we need to know what your blood sugars do during that time, during normal behavior. So, number three, eat protein with all meals and all snacks. If you really truly want to reverse your diabetes or prevent diabetes, make your meals um, plant-based, preferably, and if not plant-based, as cleanly as possible. Eat as close to the source as you possibly can. It doesn't always have to be fresh. There's not fresh vegetables everywhere. They're not always affordable everywhere. So go frozen, or at the very least, go canned. I mean, better to eat canned vegetables than to eat a high sugar or high carb meal. When you also, and the reason why your meals are so important is because diabetes is directly related to the reaction to what you eat, particularly carbohydrates. So managing your carbohydrates is often very, very important. Avoiding simple carbs, simple sugars is helpful, but if you mix them, if you have to, I mean, in moderation, of course, we're real people and we like our, I'm gonna have cake on my birthday. That's sugar. So, but the key is to offset it with fiber and protein. So again, number one, know your risk factors. Number two, know your numbers. Number three, eat protein. Make all your meals protein forward. Number four, build muscle. The So diabetes and pre-diabetes and pre-diabetes, which is insulin resistance. Some people even call it type 3 diabetes. How that is a metabolic disruptor. The reason we have those things are because our metabolic status is disrupted. Our muscle is the only organ in our body, besides our brain, of course, there's the only organ in our body that can control our metabolic status. Now, you have your thyroid that can control your metabolism. You have your adrenal glands that create cortisol, or the stress hormone, that can affect your metabolic status. But the only thing that can control our metabolic status besides our brain is our muscle. We can control our brain very well, but we can definitely control how much muscle we have. And so building muscle is something in our control that we can do to improve our metabolic status and ward off or improve or even reverse diabetes. When I reversed my insulin-dependent diabetes, I went from being on insulin to being on nothing within about 6 months. During that time, I also lost a significant amount of weight. Again, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Did I control my diabetes because I lost weight, or did I lose weight because I controlled my diabetes? There's no way of knowing, to be honest. But I was unable to exercise very much because I had a heart condition, and because of my heart condition, I couldn't do cardiovascular exercise. I could, however, build muscle, and that was very, very helpful. So, the other that happens though with muscle building when you have a metabolic condition, activity is not as efficient. So sometimes it takes more activity to get the same result as you may have had before you had an event that disrupted your metabolic status. So if you used to work out a certain way, got a certain results before being pregnant, for example, after being pregnant, it all changes. before you have menopause and after you have menopause, all changes. Menopause is another metabolic disruptor. Stress is another metabolic disruptor. So any of those things that cause metabolic disruption can be countered with muscle mass. But just understanding that it takes more work to get the same result as you did before your metabolic disruption occurred. So, number one, know your risk factors. Number two, know your numbers. Number three, eat more protein. Make sure your meals are protein forward. Number four, build muscle. That's the one thing that you have besides your meals. Muscle is the one thing you can control, and it is a powerhouse. It is a metabolic powerhouse of our body. And then number five, this is really important. Do not deny the fact that you have a metabolic issue. Because I can't tell you how many times I have heard, I am not going to claim this. I'm not going to claim the fact that I have diabetes. And my response to that is, if you do not claim you have diabetes, diabetes will claim you. Period. Diabetes doesn't care what you think or what you feel. You can do all the things that are required, but if your A1C remains high, if all your bodily functions are being affected, it is important then to treat. Now, when the earlier you treat anything, not just diabetes, but any disease state, the earlier you treat it, the easier it is to make it stop. Ask anyone who has migraine headaches. If they treat their migraines at the first twinge of a headache, it will stop a headache from getting really bad. But if they wait until they're in full-blown pain, full-blown migraine, it's almost impossible to reverse it with medication. So when it comes to metabolic diseases, prediabetes, diabetes, when you get tested and you're told you have it, please get treated. Don't deny that it's there. Or don't be realistic in what you're going to do to help reverse it. Some people might say, well, I'm just going to build muscle and I'm going to exercise and I'm going to eat right. And that's fine. And if you do those things and you reverse your numbers and you get everything fine, perfect. But if you cannot do that within the first 6 months, you need to do something to help you along. The other thing is when you are treated, it makes all the other things you do so much easier. Anyone who has diabetes, prediabetes, can tell you cravings are a beast. Craving sugar, craving carbs, craving salty chips, craving all carbs is just a beast, and it's hard to control until treated. Trying to work out, your muscles get tired very, very quickly because they're fighting against the metabolic process. When not treated, it's a beast. So treatment is not the enemy. It is your friend. Especially now that we have really good medication. And I talk about GLP-1 medications a lot. And the reason is partly because that helped me. It helps many of my patients. It helps get people to a place where they can actually start doing the things they need to really reverse their diabetes or prevent it, or at least prevent its the way it prevents the abnormal labs or any of the side effects of being diabetic or any of the complications of being diabetic. So that's really important. And it is possible to reverse diabetes and prediabetes to the point where you no longer need medication. So if you no longer need medication, that may be fine for a while, but also recognize you need to keep getting checked, because as life changes, as stress changes, as age changes, as whatever your situation changes, your metabolic status can change as well. And so that's why we check every 3 months, because it's not something we allow to just go on and on, because it can kill you. And so slowly, but it will. It causes too many complications in too many organ systems of our body for us to just ignore it. So, and I'm going to go through some of the comments and the questions as well in just a moment. But if you're diabetic and you're pre-diabetic, like I mentioned, we don't know what comes first, the chicken or the egg. So 80% of people who are, who have diabetes also have obesity or are overweight. But at the same time, you are diabetic, are heading towards diabetes for years and years and years and years before it presents in labs. And during that time, there's a lot of weight gain that happens. So which comes first? Is it the weight gain that causes the diabetes, or is it the diabetes, the metabolic disruption that's causing the weight gain? Since we know weight gain and metabolic disruption go hand in hand, it makes more sense that the metabolic disruption was causing the weight gain. It changed what your body does with food. And so you end up making fat instead of fuel for years before the numbers show what's there. And again, the reason this is so important, because ultimately death is what happens if it's left untreated. It always gets worse. It does not get better unless something's done about it. It can cause erectile dysfunction in men, blindness, amputations, organ failure, particularly kidneys and heart, gastroparesis, which is, like I said, the and your meaning your intestines and your stomach become paralyzed, because diabetes is toxic to nerves. Blood sugar is toxic to nerves and blood vessels. And so anything that's supplied by nerves and blood vessels, which is every part of our body, gets affected. And so that is, again, 5 steps. Know your risk factors, know your numbers, eat protein, plant-based, preferably, and cleanly as possible, as close to the source as possible, build muscle, and treat whatever diagnosis you receive so it doesn't get worse. All right. So I'm going to go through some of the questions I see, and I'm going to start from the bottom. It says, once you have prediabetes, will you always have it even when you turn it around? You always have the propensity for it. Yes. Whatever caused your prediabetes is still there. The genes are still there. It's just that your behavior may change it, or the situation that caused it to present itself in the first place may have changed. So, for example, if you're in a very, very high stress situation, your A1C may climb, and you go to the doctor to check, and it says you're pre-diabetes. You change jobs, suddenly you're in you're in a calm environment, your cortisol level comes down. That was the one thing that was tipping you over. So yeah, that can change and it can reverse it. But as soon as you go back into another stressful situation, you're right back where you were before. So once it's there, it's there. It's just a matter of whether all the things align to make it show itself. So yes, once you have it, you always have it, because what makes you have it are ultimately your genetic code, and you can't change that. Elizabeth asks, do GLP-1s work for people who are not insulin resistant or do not have prediabetes as well? No. If they work, you have it. It just means that you haven't been diagnosed. It's there. Now, there is a little bit of weight loss with GLP-1 medications that cause some weight loss, and that's because it does slow gut motility, so it makes people feel full faster. But if you do not have prediabetes or insulin resistant, the medication does not affect the brain function that causes you to eat, causes cravings, causes your body to make fat instead of fuel. So all of those components you may lose if you don't have any insulin resistance or any prediabetes or any metabolic disruption at all, and your metabolic status is normal and you use a GLP-1, maybe lose a little bit of weight. But if you use a GLP-1 for weight management and a large amount of weight loss, there is an underlying metabolic issue. I always say it's like what happens if you were to take Tylenol or acetaminophen or Panadol, depending on where in the world you live, for a headache you don't have. It doesn't do anything. And the same thing happens or doesn't happen with these medications. If you don't have a metabolic disruption of any kind or dysregulation of any kind, they don't do anything. Um, so Olivia says, my fasting A1C is 6. Should I get it rechecked after eating? Okay, so your A1C is, okay, this is what an A1C is. A1C measures how much sugar has been in your blood on average over the last 3 months. When our blood sugars go up, that sugar attaches to red blood cells. Red blood cells live about 90 days. And so when we check our red blood cells, we check how much sugar is on them, and it tells us how high blood sugars have been going. So fasting or not fasting does not affect that number. It's based on your eating and based on what your body does with food and where your blood sugars have been over the 3 months prior to being tested. So once your A1C is 6, it is 6, no matter whether you fast or if you don't fast. However, 6 is pre-diabetic range. 6 means your body's trying to make you diabetic. 6 means your body doesn't read textbooks and so doesn't even know that you're not diabetic. So all your processes are being affected by metabolic disruption. All the food you eat is being affected by metabolic disruption. Eating makes you tired. Not eating or eating can make you irritable. It can make you depressed. It makes you crave food. It makes you hungry right after you've eaten. It makes you gain weight through the middle. It makes it so that you catch colds very easily, or it affects your immune system. It affects fertility. It affects a lot of things. And so having an A1C of 6 means that you're probably in a mode where your body makes fat very efficiently and you can't figure out why. And if anything changes, now I'm going to make an assumption that your name is Olivia, that you're a hormonally and naturally born female, so you will go through menopause at some point. So if your A1C is 6 now and you go through menopause, it's going to go up. If your A1C is 6 now and you go into high stress situation, it's going to go up. If your A1C is 6 now and you start taking steroids for whatever reason, it's going to go up. If you are 6 now and you can't seem to stop the craving for sugar or carbs or whatever else, it's going to go up unless something is done about it. Muscle can be done something about it. The easiest thing is low dose GLP-1 plus muscle work plus eating changes, because once it's treated, all the things you have to do to help bring it down and pull you out of pre-diabetic range become so much easier. So that's my answer. And for those of you who are trying to be like, why is she just so adamant about this? I trained at a center of excellence for metabolic disease. We took diabetes and pre-diabetes and insulin resistance very, very, very seriously. And this was 25 years ago. So, and we've had a lot of advances since then. We didn't have GLP-1s then. We didn't even have metformin then. That's how old I am. When I first started practicing medicine, we didn't have metformin even. It was considered the Ozempic of its day. So I can tell you a little bit about why this is so important to me. So Marcia says, so true, doctor. Diabetes is no respecter of persons, because even children are getting diabetes now. Yes, they are. Type 2 diabetes is being more commonly seen in, we're seeing it more and more in children. And usually, again, people like it's related to genetics. It's related to lifestyle. When lifestyle hits genetics, or life hits genetics, because often you see it in children who are in high stress living environments, or who don't have access to fresh foods. And so, it just starts a vicious cycle of wanting to eat certain things, your body taking that, doing the wrong things with it, and it just keeps going. How many times a day should you test your blood sugar levels? It depends if you're diabetic or not. If you are, what I tell people, and really even if you are diabetic, the best time to check your blood sugar is with an hour and a half after your largest meal. That will tell you what your blood sugars do when you've eaten. And And if you do that every day, you'll get a pretty good idea of the trends of what happens with your blood sugar based on the meals you eat. And if you really want to know if you're diabetic or if you have an issue, drink orange juice on an empty stomach and an hour later check your blood sugar. It will tell you if there's a problem. We use sugar to raise blood sugar when it's too low. And so fruit juices are high in sugar, and fruit juices are what we use to test people to see if they're diabetic. Um, Marsha asks, can I protein shake be substituted as well? Absolutely. Protein shakes, because often what happens, especially when you're on a medication like a GLP-1 where your appetite drops, it's very difficult to eat the amount of protein that you need daily. Or if you're someone like I am who's 5 feet tall, the amount of protein that you need to sustain yourself just your stomach's just not big enough to eat as much as you need. Um, and so often it requires supplementing with a protein shake. Eating protein dense foods is always very helpful. Small beans, small bean meals, eating or mixing it with healthy fat. Now, healthy fat is another thing that helps with controlling blood sugars. Things like avocados, for example, is really good for helping control blood sugar along with protein. So I think that's all the questions, unless there's there's another comment. Oh, thank you. Is it the spiked insulin level that causes carb cravings? It is no. So it is the spiked insulin levels that cause fat production. The carb craving is because your insulin is trying to get the signal into your brain that you've eaten, that you don't need carbohydrates. And unfortunately, insulin resistant, our cells are resistant to insulin. So that insulin is not working, it's not hitting the cell in the right way, it's not opening the doors to let the signal get into your brain. And when your brain doesn't get the right signal, it sends the wrong signal. And so carb cravings are a direct result of your body not being able to use the insulin that it produces. That is metabolic disruption. That is the very definition of metabolic disruption. So spiked insulin causes fat production. It's spiked blood sugars that also cause fat production, but also cause carb cravings. If you're, let me see. How do you feel about the wearable glucose monitor? The wearable glucose monitor is only good temporarily to allow people to know what foods that they eat cause them an issue. Not everyone who has metabolic disruption reacts the same thing to all foods. For example, I'm one of these people where I can drink a small amount of juice, my blood sugar stays normal. But if I eat tomato sauce, boom, my blood sugar shoots straight up. I know this because I although when I was learned that we didn't have continuous monitors. That's how long ago I was diagnosed. But what I find with glucose monitors most often, that they really make it hard to understand what's the normal blood sugar fluctuation. They often misread too lows. They send off alarms when things are, are because you can only adjust the high levels. You can't adjust the low levels. Everybody's blood sugar drops through the night. Everybody's blood sugar drops through the day, and they keep sending off the alarms, and it alarms the people who are wearing it. The only time that I suggest people wear a continuous glucose monitor is if they're on insulin, or they're on a new medication that could drop their blood sugar, and they're on more than one. So if they're on a GLP-1 and they're on say an SGLT2 like Farxiga or Jardiance, or if they're on metformin also. So, and even then, I only have people wear it temporarily, because often what it does, it just creates anxiety in most people. In fact, I stopped wearing the one I had for that reason. Everyone's blood sugar drops at certain points in the night. And if you're on insulin, it may keep dropping. If you're not on insulin, it's very rare. So there's really no reason to have to know that your blood sugar is a little bit low through the middle of the night. It happens to everybody, unless it could be dangerous. And the only time it can be dangerous is if there's insulin involved. Jacob said, what do you advise about the accuracy of electronic devices using your cell phone to get your sugar level? To be honest, I haven't tested it. So the best way to do this, and this is for any device, I say this for blood pressure cuffs, for blood sugar, all of it. Have a glucometer, have your phone, check them at the same time. If they match, you can trust your phone, cell phone check. If they don't match, then you can't trust it. And that's because the key is it's accuracy. Accuracy is extremely important. So again, you can do the same thing with the blood pressure cuff. Check your blood pressure cuff, like so for people who have white coat syndrome, for example, who go to the doctor and their blood pressure is only high when they're in their doctor's office, check your blood pressures at home, record them. Take your blood pressure cuff with you to your next doctor appointment and check them at the same time. If the numbers are the same, then what that tells you is that your blood pressure is not really high. It's only high in your doctor's office. And it's called white coat syndrome. And that's how you find it. And you check it. So, any other questions? If you do think of something else or you want to share. Now, I would recommend, if you know anybody in your family or if you have a family history of diabetes, I would share this video with them because it's very important that people know how to take care of themselves. Prevention is so much easier than a cure. And you can't really cure diabetes, but you can definitely get it under control. And that's really the most important thing. The other is you can go to my YouTube channel. If you're not already a subscriber, please subscribe to my YouTube channel so that I can get more of these videos out, share it with people, friends, and family, like it, put the thumbs up little thing or whatever they call it. And I would appreciate that. And if you have people in your lives who have any health issues, who may want good wellness information, who also want to learn about weight loss and healthy ways of doing that, just share my channel with them. Just pick 5 people and send it off to them. And then so that I'm really trying to grow my channel, and mainly because I like to educate, I like to teach, and it's just fun. And so when the more people that follow me, the more questions I get, and I love answering questions, as you can see. All right. Jacob said, you were just diagnosed last week. You're traumatized, crying in the doctor's office, trying to get on board and to get this under control. I know it is hard because people kind of present it like it's a death sentence. It really isn't. And I can tell you, as someone who used to be on insulin, I really understand that. And it is controllable. It really is. And you can go through life. It's really, what I say, you have diabetes. You are not diabetic. Does that make sense? You have something. It doesn't make you who you are. It just makes it so that you have to do certain things in a certain way. And right now it's early. So you just feel like every bit of food is the enemy. You feel like every blood sugar blip is the enemy. You'll get to a point over time where you'll feel comfortable having a piece of cake at a certain time, or even having a glass of wine. Or your body may just tell you, I really don't like that, so I don't do that again. And you just like, okay. Over time, you'll adjust and your body will tell you what you can and cannot do. But I can tell you, we have GLP-1 medications are the best for diabetes control. I have never been in a situation where I've seen diabetes controlled so easily. Now, I've seen it controlled in the past. I've done it myself, but it was hard. It was really hard. It was like daily concentration on every little thing, and it's really no way to live. It's just not a good, it's just a hard way to live. So now we don't have to do that. We have really good medications that help. Pill forms, injectable forms, all sorts of forms. And we have a lot of information. What I would also recommend is going to the National Institute of Health. They have a lot of information. It's the NIH in the US, and you can find a lot of information about how to manage your diabetes, or you can also talk to your doctor and you can watch. I have a lot of videos on diabetes and metabolic control. And you can also send me questions at help@drtoomer.com. And I'm going to put it in the comments, help at. And so you can write to me there, ask me questions. I can tell you most of my recommendations are going to be, yeah, you can do such and such, talk to your doctor. But or you can ask me questions on my videos. If for anyone who's written to me, who's asked me questions, who's made comments, they know I respond on my YouTube channel videos. I'm on metformin sliding scale. My doctor wanted to hospitalize me. My blood was at, oh yeah, okay. That's early. That's gonna that you're gonna feel once that's under control, you're gonna just feel so much better. And that's what I mean. You can be walking around with diabetes and just simply don't know it. And for those people who are saying, blood was at 435, normal is 120. We don't mind seeing 140 after eating, but we prefer it to be under 120. So that just gives you an idea of how easy it is to walk around with diabetes and not know it. You might feel horrible, but you don't know why you feel horrible. So, well, thank you for sharing that, Jacob. That's really, and I appreciate that because it is very personal. It is very difficult. And there are people who also are very judgy because the reason they're judging is because we've been told it's your fault. It's because of your lifestyle. It's because you didn't do this. You let yourself go. You let this happen. When they don't realize, one, if you've ever been pregnant, you get your diabetic gene gets triggered. If you're aging to a certain point, that gets triggered. If you're under stress, that gets triggered. If you take steroids, that gets triggered. It's like there's so many things that just trigger the development of diabetes and all these things. But we've always been told it's because you didn't do something right. And that's just not true. Wow. You went from 435 to 145 in 2 weeks. That's amazing. That's actually pretty good. That is diabetic control. That is wonderful diabetic control. Cindy said you're 120 after hour and a half after eating. That's good. That's perfect. We want to see it under 140. If you, now understand this, that's in people who we know have diabetes. If you're pre-diabetic or you have insulin resistance, you can have normal blood sugars all the time. And it might just spike initially after you eat. So you can still have very efficient fat production, very efficient weight gain, even with normal blood sugar. So that's why it's just important to kind of recognize when your body just doesn't act like you want it to, and sometimes you just don't feel like yourself. Often it is a metabolic disruption. And one of the reasons why you hear this a lot with women who are going through menopause is because of that reason. I just feel weird. I don't feel like myself. I just feel like my body's not behaving like it used to. A lot of times it's because of the metabolic disruption that menopause causes that lends itself to a lot of that feeling, brain fog, and all the rest. So you're like, well, that's still good. It's very good. Just and it's good as long as you're not having any other symptoms. That's all. That's all I'm saying. You said you felt terrible and you did know why. Okay. And that's, again, I think you meant to say didn't know why, but yeah, it is a bad feeling. It's just bad. So, all right. Any more questions before we go? Wow, 45 minutes. All right. So I try to keep these short. Marcia said you get that funny feeling sometimes. And there's lots of different feelings that you can get. Sometimes when your blood sugar is too high, you get one feeling. If it's too low, you get another. Our body is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful machine, but it's finicky and it's persnickety, as they say. um, Sometimes it just doesn't like the things we do, and sometimes it just doesn't like the things we don't do. So, that's just human body for us. Oh, you said you did know why. Okay. Well, I'm glad that you have it under control and that you're just going to feel so much better. Your life is going to improve, 100-fold. Okay. I should write a book about this. Oh, I just might. You never know. Definitely, if I did, it would probably be a memoir because when it comes to diabetes, I've been through all of it and still going through it. Like I said, I have diabetes, and I address it daily. I don't let it control my life, but I do let it. Um, I don't let it control my health either. I control my health, and I control my health by controlling my diabetes. So. All right. Well, thank you all for being here. Thank you for coming. And I just realized I forgot to add my little music at the end, but I will next week. All right. Good night. You all have a good evening. And I'll see you next Tuesday. Don't forget to share and let people know that I'm here. Tuesday talks. Dr. Toomer talks on Tuesday, every Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern. Good night.